Hello, everyone. So we're back with the Afterburn podcast after a long hiatus this time. Just some personal things this time got in the way, but we're back now for episode 10 in February. A lot of good stuff happening now. We didn't go away for a major or anything. So as always, I'm Gib. I'm like I guess the host, and then we also have
Yep, I'm in some.
And I'm blank.
yeah. So the first thing we're going to talk about that we kind of just happened was the NA regional, and to my shock, Faze ended up winning it, even though I've never been a big fan of Faze or supporter of them. So, did they finally break the? Did Asphere cheer for them this time? Did he say they're gonna win? Was the
No,
Asphere crust
that's the
broken
main
or?
reason. Yeah, that's the main reason why they won actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% that's the reason.
So, what do you guys think of it? 'Cause I think you guys watched a little more than I did for this one. But
Did you
Yeah,
watch it in some?
I actually watched it. It was pretty good. Like the final series, they were on the verge of getting reverse swept by Gen G with like
Oh
pure
yeah.
plot armor. One of the games Gen G won 6-0. And then it came down to game 7 and I guess FaZe just clutched it up. You could say like Gen G kind of threw it, but uh, FaZe just outplayed them.
Yeah, that last game too was like 5-0 from Faze. So it was pretty
It was
impressive.
just ridiculous.
I don't know if
Yeah.
3 games gave them too much ego and then they just like got caught up in it for Gen G
Yeah.
because you could argue the same thing happened for FaZe after that third game in a row. Because FaZe was up 3-0, and then like Genji nearly reverse swept them. But then FaZe, which was pretty impressive, was able to stop them. Which if it's a Genji team, I know Gibbs mentioned this on the pod on the not the podcast, what I'm talking about, the main broadcast show. Um, it's impressive against like Genji because they're already a pretty icy team, pretty strong team, and if you can like stop them from reverse sweeping, it's pretty impressive.
yeah, they're also
Um,
just been arguably the best team this whole
exactly.
season. I'd say they are. I mean, I don't think you can really debate that because they won the
No, you
major and
can't.
they've made the finals of or won every single event. So kind of just been domination from them, and another second place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They haven't. It would have been cool if they won, because like it would have been like 4 straight wins, I think, since
Yeah.
fall invitational. But that's okay, because KC didn't win this regional or this recent regional, so they didn't have any leg
So,
up on Genji.
Blake, though,
But
do these regionals bring back more of your faith in NA as a region? Now that Phase One, they're looking good again. There's some like
uh,
revived of like G2. You got some like younger teams stepping up, like M80 here. Do we
a
believe
little
in NA
bit.
yet, or do we still think Europe's just gonna be like the best outside of Gen G from NA?
No, no, I don't know. Like Europe's bad too, to be honest. Like everybody's bad except for like
Yeah.
Genji and like FaZe, in my opinion. Or Genji, FaZe, and like KC. Um, even KC's like okay. I don't know. If I had to give you like a top four right now, I would say like Genji is number one. KC is probably number two. FaZe is number three, like very slightly behind KC. And like maybe Team Liquid you could throw in for the fourth one because they just won the Winter Invitational in Europe,
Yeah,
but they are also like hot and cold. So
you're
Well,
not
I think
putting
other teams like
also,
Moist,
irrelevant. Even dude, that team.
the team that
I
didn't
don't know if
even
you guys
make the
saw that.
major, right? They didn't make the winter major, right?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if you guys like saw any of them play. I watched them against Quadrant, I think, and that's where they lost, and they couldn't make the major after that point. Then recent invitational from Winter, and like their offense, they've got offense at times, like moments of brilliance, obviously, because like all 3 players on that team are mechanical geniuses at times, but their defense was like terrible. They had none of that cohesion, and I know it's like just like with a lot of other teams like that I didn't mention that top four. I think they just like play brain dead still. They're not really playing with their minds. Maybe G2 is like an exception to that, but like I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't. Yeah, I haven't watched too much of Europe, but I think I agree with that. Like Moist, I think's always lacked the like cohesion synergy aspect. They've kind of just tried to like bowl their way through teams with the three mechanical players they have. They just be like, oh, we're gonna try to like outflip preset you and pressure you through our mechanics and like not really thinking. And I think Rock League's starting to take a bit of a turn where like that worked. I think last year, I think that was kind of
yeah.
like the play for the most part outside of BDS finding success at Worlds. And then I think this year we're starting to see like that you can't just get away with mechanics anymore. Like teamwork and synergy is becoming like the more important kind of like meta, and that's kind of like the way the game is evolving now. would be my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. Genji's prime example doesn't even have. I mean, you could say yes, they do have mechanics, but they're not the most mechanical players in the region, and yet they still beat teams with mechanics. Well, except for the recent invitational where FaZe finally won. Like,
Yeah,
surely
FaZe looks good
Genji
doing it.
finally lose. I think the biggest surprise there is FaZe beating G2. I had G2 beating FaZe and FaZe coming fourth, but
Was that
the
series
curse is broken.
close?
It was a 4-2
4-2.
series.
Okay, so
Games were
like
like
not
kind
that
of
close
close.
then.
It's
Maybe a
kind of
little bit.
close, I guess.
It was closer than the
Yeah.
4-0 for Gen G against Complexity.
See, my question with FaZe is, was this a result because first killer was starting to enable Typical and like slightly missed, but like mostly Typical? Because Typical was the star player in the most recent or open or cup, no,
Yeah.
cup.
Yeah, regional.
Yeah, regional, and like it was clear he was getting most of the goals, and like yeah, first killer was obviously enabling him a lot, but I don't know if it's because first killers actually and that team phase is like changing their playstyle to match Genji as they mentioned they were trying to do, or if it's just because like Typical was having a good regional, you know? Like I'm curious if it's actually because Typical is just inconsistent and like when he plays well, like they actually do well, or if it's because they actually are playing more as a team, you know? Because
I think
I feel
only
like I've
time will
seen,
tell, to
I
be
mean, yeah,
honest.
time will tell, but I've seen them play even better than they played this recent regional. So I feel like they could do even better. So I don't know if it's a matter of consistency or maybe they actually just are playing better and like more consistent because of that team play style. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, FaZe has never been bad, right? They always come fourth at the
Yeah.
majors, and
They
they
always
always
come
come into
like they make it to the
finals.
final day. They always
Mhm.
destroy everyone up until the final day where they get beaten by another team that's just peaking on that day, and probably eventually wins that event.
I think FaZe's only issue really has just been they can't get over like the final hump. They're like very
Yeah.
good at like getting to like the top 4, top 6s of every event, but they just struggle with like getting over the hump at least internationally. I think they get over the hump enough regionally. They always win
Mhm.
like a major a year or like a couple. Like they never really get blanked in that department. But when they go internationally is where we see them kind of like they just can't do it. They come
Yeah,
fourth every
their
time.
mental. I feel like it's their mental, but we'll see. Because I feel like Typical's mental is probably pretty bad if I had to guess, just based off like what I've seen. But I also know First Killer doesn't have a rock solid mental either. At least when it comes to those like last days.
Yeah,
Because
mental
It's like they
ice. Who
might
knows?
be more pressure on the majors because for regional, I don't think they're too worried. They know they're good enough to make a major, so it's not as stressful. But a major, it's like it's their time to shine. It's do or die.
Maybe they get
Maybe
nervous
that's
by the
a little bit.
crowds. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe the
could be
crowds get
S
to them.
bro.
Could be yeah. Now that Asphere is
Yeah,
no
or
longer
just
cheering
Asphere
for FaZe, we're gonna
first.
see them win the next major. Put a bet on it.
That guy needs to stop rooting for NA teams, bro.
Well, that'd be hard because he's from NA.
I know.
And he knows all. He's all friends with all the pros, right? So he's not friends with the European pros or as good of friends with them.
Europe's lucky. Anything else in that invitational or in the Winter Open for NA? That was Winter Cup for NA.
I think the only thing was like if we want to talk about the emergence of some of the lesser known teams, none of them did like anything
Right.
crazy, but like M80 had I think a good result for their
Just
showing.
upsets. Like
Rogue did a little better, I guess.
M80 top 8, 3-0
Yeah.
over Furia, Koi beating version 1 in a reverse sweep.
NRG being out again and refusing to make a
Yeah,
roster
Energy
change.
again.
Um,
Energy, that was a reverse
They
sweep.
got reverse swept too, yeah. That's tough.
I guess SSG also doing
I
kind of
watched
bad.
that series. It was such a choke.
It was a choke for sure.
Like Energy literally had them. Even in the following games in the reverse sweep, they had them every game, and they just lost.
Yeah, all those players on that team, like I feel like Squishy has been playing really a lot better lately. Even though he's been getting a lot of like crap from everybody,
Did
I
you guys
feel like
see
he's decent.
what
He's
was
really
it? Who
good.
was on the podcast and Rizzo's podcast from Moist?
Rise.
Was it Rise?
Yeah,
Did
it
you see
was
Rise's
Rise.
comments on? I actually agree with Rise on that one where it's like, well, to a
What did he
point,
say?
where he basically
You think
just
he's
said like,
retired?
no, not the retirement, but I agree with him to the point where he said like, everyone at NRG is like good enough where if they went to other teams they could have success, but it's not going to be
Yeah.
together. Like
Oh,
I think he's spot on with that one. I think the
I think that's
NRG
right,
players
yeah.
are a little delusional, thinking that they can get it to work themselves when they've been trying for like
Years.
year and a half, 2 years now, and they expect
It's 2
something
years now.
different. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I think they're just a little delusional for that.
We'll see. Like I said, I think they did make or tried to make a roster change in winter, but like it didn't pan out, and they didn't want I think they've also thought about doing roster changes in the past, but there was never a player that was a free agent that they considered good enough. But that's also been like their problem with not risk taking. You gotta take a risk at least, I guess at least a small risk, because they like you could probably think like, oh, maybe we'll try picking up this new kid Chronic because he seems like he might have potential, but he's never made like top 4, so maybe we shouldn't, That's like they probably could have picked up Chronic and probably would have had a lot more success if they took a little bit more risks on those kind of things. So yeah, it is, at the end of the day, it's probably their fault for sure.
Oh, it's their fault. But then it just comes to the question of like maybe the players are just getting too much power within like that team and org. Maybe the org should have pushed them more to be like, we're making a change or we're just not going to re-sign the contract or something. I don't know how long they are or when they expired or something, but I mean, the org would never do that because like everyone at NRG has like the biggest brand value of any player to bring in like money to the org ever. I don't know how
All
you
three of them,
replace
yeah.
all three of them literally do. So
I think the
don't
org
really
isn't
know.
worried too much about the placements as much as the brand value. Yeah.
Yeah, that just kind of like I guess speaks to like I just have a different philosophy. I feel like if you're an org, your main goal should be to win, and then you can sign content creators on the side if you want like the media aspect. But at least when you're like in the esports scene, I think your main goal should be to win as an org, not to appease like dollar values for like streamers. If you want like a streamer, just like kick them and sign them as a content creator. But
yeah, no, I think Energy lately has been a lot more about content.
Yeah, for sure.
Than winning.
I mean, they have Musty as a sub, right? So I think that's all you need to know.
That is true. That is true. I do think though, if Energy does not make major, they will make a change. I'm very confident.
My guess is like they're so stubborn they won't make a change till after they fail to make worlds. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're not in a great position to make worlds, right?
I don't think they're making worlds at all with this current team. I think it's probably next to nothing. Like I don't think they will.
Yeah, right now they're 7th.
Yeah.
Like only 1 point ahead of Furia. If they make a change though in
That's
spring,
higher than I would have imagined.
Yeah, like 7th they're making worlds by now. Likely. Because and it's probably gonna get 4 spots at the end of it, likely.
4 or 3. Yeah.
Probably so like 3. It's possible.
Well, it depends on who makes the.
They're okay, but they're giga behind. They're giga behind complexity. So if there's only there's only like 6 teams that go to Worlds from NA, they're not beating complexity. Especially that complexity is already going to win a major, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, they're just gonna.
Yeah, complexity is a lot better.
Yeah.
This split and loss for sure. Yeah. If they do get like a new player though, if they make a roster change, I could see that team doing a lot better going forward.
Yeah, Energy is the type of team where like they could make a roster change and then they could go and win the like spring major. No, they could win the spring international major and then they would for sure make it. I hope they realize that though. Is like they're a team where like they could make one roster change and then just win everything and make it, but they have to make the roster change for that to happen.
The players are still good enough to win.
They can't just keep the current one and hope.
Yep.
But
like Energy to me looks more hopeful than BDS's current situation. Yeah. Which is crazy to say, but like I don't know, BDS looks even more scary than like worse off than Energy. Like if Energy made a change, I would have a lot more confidence in them than like if BDS made a change and got like someone of the same value roughly.
I think BDS is in like a similar spot of Energy where it's like, well, they're definitely not making worlds in Europe, and maybe like I think you could put any one of those players on a different team and they could elevate them to like be a contender. I just
they really aren't.
I don't think it's gonna happen with 3 of them because they've done worse than Energy. They're like way out of it.
Yeah.
They're at 9th right now, and they're like
they fell off.
They fell off hard,
which is crazy. Yeah. It's kind of weird. The world champions just fell off.
Yeah.
Like a
you think GT would have fell off that quickly if they won?
No,
I don't think
they already did kind of fall off, but they're still like good enough where they'll make the event.
Yeah, I think G2 actually was the better team to be honest. Yeah, but they just choked finals.
I do too. I think they just choked. G2 has for some reason, whenever they get to the finals, they just tend to choke. I mean, even in the one major they won last year, they choked.
They almost choked it.
It was like, it was close. It was so close to being choked. So maybe one day they'll figure it out. But
but going back to the NA teams that were like bringing out like Koi, like what other MAD and PK, so the Knights. PK, I don't really have like a lot of I didn't really think they looked that like good at all, to be honest. I mean, they got 4-0, so clearly they
Yeah,
weren't
I
doing
don't
that
think
great.
there's much hope.
They
I
got
just-
obliterated.
Yeah.
I watched the series. It was like
I think I stopped watching
getting
after the
fun.
first game because I was like, this is boring. Koi, like I said, I like Knight and Aqua.
I think
they
they're
have
one move away.
Yeah, I think they're one move away as well. I think they got a couple games off Complexity, which is, I mean, I know Complexity probably wasn't playing the best that game, that series,
Yeah.
but I think they have potential. So, and then M80, I feel like we were talking about this team a little bit before the split after they made the pickup of Percy, and we're like, this
Yeah.
team could have some potential because like it was good. They didn't like kick off like Kinsey or Lion Blaze for Percy. Like they actually kicked off the right person. We thought like Alrez, right? Like he was clearly the weakest person
Yeah,
on
for
that
sure.
team. And
I
now
think
you know
Percy's
they're
played with Lion Blaze too at some point
have they
in his.
really?
I don't know if we'd find it on Wikipedia, but I think they've played together before in like tournaments
cool.
and stuff. So
Percy's been looking great too. Like they stomped Furia, so they can do that to Furia. Like I think they're pretty good. I think they're the best shot at like a team that hasn't really been in the conversation to make major. You know?
yeah,
Like,
I think M80s would be the biggest like shock that
Like
of,
dark
if
horse,
they made a
probably.
major of like anyone. I think they also have like. I think they have one of the best chances of being of those shock teams to like make it.
Mhm.
Of like it's the first time a team from NA is going to a major that you didn't expect at all. I don't think that's ever happened.
Exactly.
I don't think it's ever happened since the creation of the lands coming back from COVID for NA. So this would be the first. I mean, I'd like to see it. Everyone loves a good Cinderella story. It'd be the first
Same.
time ever for NA, so it'd be fun. And yeah, I think for me on that team, it's always like I just doubt them only from a mental aspect. I don't doubt them from a skill perspective, but maybe they've
Fair.
maybe the players there have turned a leaf, and you know, if they've figured it out, I think they could be very good and consistently very good. And just to give a little more context, I think Percy's fine. It's more just like Lion Blaze and Kinsey have had a history of questionable mentality. I mean, you can go look on Twitter and stuff for the situations they've been in, but some of it's public, some of it's a little like more just rumors. But
Yeah, who
yeah,
knows the full
they've
truth,
lacked
man.
motivation a lot in their career, where they just don't play the game, or they just don't want to try at some points.
I'd hope they'd be like as motivated as ever though, because they're so close.
They should
you know?
be. I mean, if
This
I were
is the
them, I'd be
best they've
super
ever
motivated
played.
right now.
I'd
You
be
should
motivated.
Yeah, you should be
Yeah.
wanting to play. And maybe
I
they
think
are.
a
Maybe that's
Lion-
why they're doing so well. Maybe they're enjoying the game again.
Yeah, it could be a team thing. Like they're just
Yeah.
motivated because they actually feel like they have a good team. But I don't know. Lion Blaze has been looking insane too, to be honest. Like they looked really good against Gen G. To me, I think they have the best potential to make the major, and I even think they're a better team than SSG right now, which is crazy to say because Daniel's on that team, and he's literally like I
Talk
don't know,
about a
top
team
3
that
player in the
needs to
world, in
make
my
a
opinion.
switch.
Pardon me?
Talk about a team that actually needs to make a switch. Like
Yeah, or just
desperately.
like I don't know.
SSG. I think
100%.
Arsenal is the one that has to go between now and spring. That's what I think. But I don't know
Yeah,
if you keep LJ afterwards, but I think if you want to try to like salvage this year's season without getting rid of your points, you get rid of Arsenal and bring someone in, and just hope LJ figures it out or something.
Arsenal has like had moments though where he's like really mechanically good. So I still think he's got it. It's just like I don't know. I don't think that team works well together. I think all 3 players are like offensive
Yeah.
and they're kind of like oxygen to me where like they really need to click or else like they don't work at all because none of the players have too much of a brain or that kind of stuff, you know, and they're too offensive and like their defense just looks bad sometimes. Like they get caught out. I don't know. That
They
team's
don't
really
have
weird to
they
me.
don't have a good third man on their roster. I think it's just, and none of them have been able to like do it well or like fill that role in well. To me, that's probably
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, you can definitely talk more about roster changes for NA though when we get to
After
after
we
the
see
major.
who makes it and who
yeah,
actually,
or just see who makes it.
how they do and stuff, because a lot of it just depends on results at the end of the day, unless you're NRG, I think. So
yeah. What you think? Even if they make the major, they're gonna make a change?
I think
they
NRG
should
isn't
make a
making a
change?
change till afterworld. That's my guess. And you know what? Even
Oh,
then,
okay.
I think they might not. So we'll see.
That's outlandish take.
I
Run it back for another
feel like
season.
they're sticking together till one of them will retire, and then they'll make a change. One of them will officially retire, or hang up the sticks, and then they'll make a change. That's my guess.
That'd be wild, but
That's what it looks like.
that's what it looks like. I don't know. I think You might be hating a little. I mean, yeah, it's been a while. Like they should have made a change a long time ago, in my opinion, too. But I think with the recent results, they're like thinking, okay, this is clearly not working, guys. So
They're gonna make a change and then they're gonna blame the community on it. That's what's gonna happen. They like NRG players. I don't like this, but they love playing the victim card of like the community wants us to make a change and we hate them for it. It's like that's just
Yeah, they kinda-
sports. Like that's just sports and esports. You can't like hate the
No, they
community
are a
for
little
having bad
baby.
results and then them wanting
Yeah.
a change. It's just how esports is. If you don't like it, don't play.
Yeah, they have so many fans that are like cheering them on, but they just decide to look at only the negative stuff. And like
Yeah.
after, I can understand that for like just getting into the scene, but if you've been doing that for like your whole career, like you gotta start thinking maybe I'm thinking the wrong way here, you know?
I agree. It's not fair too. It's like nobody should like receive hate or the death threats and
Mhm.
stuff. But like,
Mhm.
I just think it's at the point where like if you go into sports, because it also happens in regular sports or esports, it's just a part of the job. It's just is what it is. It sucks, but that's just kind of what it is. And you should. I don't know.
Yeah. So in sum, who do you think is making the major? Let's start off with. Let's go into that because I think
Yeah.
we talked about the Winter Cup. We know who's making the Winter Invitational, but we don't really know the seedings yet. But I guess what we can talk more
Who
about
do we
is
think from
we
NA
think
is going to make the major? Because the other regions
Exactly.
are already
Yeah.
figured out. / we don't care.
Yeah, you confirmed today.
But
Yeah.
And for NA, we only have Gen G confirmed. Like
Mm.
just looking at the points, like I feel like complexity that they have to make it. Like their chance should be pretty high. I haven't looked at the statistics for it, but like I think it'd have to be a monumental choke for them to not make it. I would hope FaZe and G2 make it. I think they just need to come like top 8 or something. They should have a very solid chance. And then the final spot is where it gets interesting. You have Dig, M80, SSG, Furia, possibly Energy,
Knights
all
and
in the
NRG.
running. But
Yeah. So at points wise, we have Dig at 1 point ahead of M80 and Space Station, who are at 19 respectively each, with Dig at 20, and then Furia, Knights, and Energy are all tied below them at 16
at
points.
16, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, if one of those teams from Dig through NRG, if one of them can get top 4, they're probably looking very good to make it. The top 4 or higher. They're probably
Mhm.
looking very good to take the last spot and make it. So I think this is probably the most exciting major race NA has ever seen, I think. Where it's like there's actually so many teams competing for the last spot. I think it'd be wild
Yeah.
to see G2 or FaZe not make it. I think it's like I just don't think that'll happen. Mathematically, it's probably like almost impossible unless they like
They'd have
are
to
out
come
in
like dead
groups or
last in the
something.
regional or something.
Yeah, they have to get like 0
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, I think they'd literally have to be getting like 12th.
They'd have to get 0
And
points and
Like
then
0
like
and 3 in group
they'd
stage.
have to get 0 points and Gen G, Complexity, and FaZe would have to finish outside top 4 or something like that. What it would take for like
Yeah.
one of those guys
Yeah, like
to
one
not
other
make
person,
it.
one other team.
Like
Mhm. Which we don't think is that. Yeah, I think we can all agree that G2, FaZe, Complexity,
Yeah.
Gen G, they're making a major.
So I think
It really
it's
just comes
really-
down to Dig M80, SSG, Furia, and Knights, and Energy.
who do you have out of those? What is it? 5
Ooh,
teams?
that's interesting.
I
Like
think-
SG is very hit or miss, and
Mhm.
M80 is on the come up. Same with Dig. So I'm actually not sure. Like the fact that I'm not even sure, even when SSG is on the list, is says a lot about.
I think
the current
SSG
state
would
of
be
NA.
the most boring one in my opinion. I think that would be the
I
most
agree.
fan favorite and boring outcome if SSG made it. So I'd love to see Dig make it. I think that'd be a cool story. I'd love to see M80 make it. That would be super cool. I'd be okay if Furia made it, but that'd also kind of be like a little bit of a maybe less exciting one. Although I do want to see Furia in the international stage. And I don't think Knights will make it. I'm just gonna say that. And then NRG is that'd be an interesting one. I don't think they'll make it, but if they made it, I guess teams would be like, "Oh, they're back, yay!" And then they won't definitely won't split up till after Worlds.
Yeah, that'd be rough. I think it'd be better for Energy not to make it, so they can know they need to make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So me personally, I think it's between M80 and SSG. I think Dig kind of peaked in regional one. I don't
Yeah.
think they're gonna replicate that this regional. They didn't last regional. I mean they have a shot, but like I think the one who has the least shot is Knights in my opinion, for sure. I agree
I
with
think
that.
Knights have no chance. Yeah.
Yeah. Energy and Furia have. I think Energy has a slightly better chance than Furia, to be honest. With how they've looked, but even them, I don't know. Maybe it's like Energy, Space Station, M80 have like equal chances. Dig is like right there, close with them, and like Furia roughly as well. So I think M80 is gonna make it. If I had to make one prediction, I think M80 is gonna make it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be like M80.
I think that's a good pick. Yeah.
Probably M80 or SSG. And for the exciting perspective, I hope it's M80.
Mm-hmm. They look good. I don't know. I think if they even make the major and they perform like they don't get too nervous, I think they can do well. Make a top 8 run.
Yeah, it'd be fun to watch them just to see how our like NA depth or like upcoming talent would actually do on like the international stage, because we've never gone to see it. Where like with Europe, you kind of get to see it a lot more, where these like random young teams come up and do well, and we get to see them like do really well at the major. Whether it was like Liquid last year, then they come like top 8 or top 4, like one of them, and like Moist won the one and or made finals like one of the first ones and stuff. So it'd be cool to see how the NA does, because we're always memed about our depth, right? It's bad, it's horrible, it's awful. Import region. But
oh man, yeah, they need some import rules in place for sure.
not even just for NA anymore. With all this, we're not even going to go into the SSA drama that happened, but other regions might need some help and protection as well. But then this brings us to the juicy topics that were being discussed on Twitter throughout
you guys like this one
throughout the time here. But the first one we'll talk about is it was making its way on Twitter. I got into some debates with some people on it, but it's how close to pro SSL is. So for people who don't understand the argument, it's basically saying like some people believe like once you hit SSL, which is like the highest rank in the game, that you're basically a pro player, which is a little bit preposterous. But other people then go like kind of like the other extreme and see like, oh, the gap between SSL and bronze is like lower than the gap between SSL and pro. So they're saying like a bronze is closer to an SSL player than an SSL player is to a pro player, which I think is also a little ridiculous. I don't know if I agree with that one either. But
okay, numerically, sure. And then that's if you're comparing like the top 10 players.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting debate,
right?
and I think it's a fun one to get into. Yeah. But before I give my initial thought, what do you guys think? Like, do you guys have any initial thoughts on like how comparable do you think it is for like an SSL to become pro, or how close to pro is SSL?
I think the problem is most people in this game, like statistically, are not even close to like grand champion, right? Like grand champion is still like the top 2% of the player base. So most people making these takes literally do not understand what it's like to play in an SSL lobby, play in like.
No, a lot of the pros are saying this in some. If you saw, a lot of the current pro Rocket League players say like, "Oh, nowhere close. SSLs are nowhere close to being pro," or like bubble players are saying it. I think is the better one. But
what rank is like?
That's interesting.
What MMR is SSL these days?
1875.
1800. I think it's like what the top 0.001% of the player base, or 0.01 or 0.01, something like that.
I mean, I don't think it's that exaggerated as the pros say. Maybe it's just because from their perspective, when they're 2300, they play a 1900 lobby. They're just like, wow, everyone's so bad. But
yeah, if we're talking like playing in regionals, well, obviously, yeah, you can't say if you're SSL, you're pro. Like, there's obviously. Like,
I don't want to say it's close. There's a gap.
It's just trying to measure how much.
There's a noticeable gap between SSL and pro, no doubt. But
if we're talking comparing to like other esports with like their top division and like.
We'll get to that one, Blake. We'll get to that one. Don't get into that one. Yeah.
I guess it's a different topic.
But
yeah.
But I'll just say this: I think the gap between SSL and pro is smaller than the gap between SSL and bronze. I think that was a ridiculous take to say that the gap between SSL and bronze is less, or because like, here's my take. It's just saying it. If you have an SSL player play a bronze player, they will win 50-0. The team. If you have a like SSL team play a pro team, it'll be like 12-0. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
And like 12-0 is like on the other end. Like if you have some decent SSL players play a pro team, it's like 4-1 or like 5-1. Like
I 100% agree. Yeah.
I don't think it's like that much. Also, like people like don't realize like maybe the gap between like an SSL player and like Daniel is insurmountable. But if we're just talking like going pro, there's a lot of like, top 16 pro teams that aren't as strong, where like SSL players are more comparable to and kind of like can compete and stuff. So I think there's like kind of like layers people don't think about to like the situation of like SSL isn't pro, like it's not particularly close, but I think you're like maybe only like 1,000 hours off, or like a couple like good coaching, analyzing sessions of understanding how the game works, to being like able to compete with the pros where you're only losing 3-1, 3-2, and like the games are close. Maybe you'll lose 3-2 like 99 out of 100 times, but that's a close game. Like you could win it. There's a chance for you to win the game. It's not like ridiculous skill level or anything. But
yeah, our player base is like too small too to make it like that much of a difference with how long the game's been out. Like there's probably so many players that, since our player base is so low, the amount of players that have been around for a while are like that are SSL are like really close to, or at least like pretty close to pro level, to be honest. I'm talking like, not like bottom of the barrel who just made SSL recently,
yeah,
or like the lowest SSL ranks. If we're talking like average SSL, then like it's relatively close to pro level.
Oh,
And
for
like
sure.
they could
I think we
definitely
should count
get
it as
there.
like average SSL player, not the one that just got it. It's probably like the
Yeah.
average SSL player. I think it's like they can compete with the pros, where it's like the games are somewhat close and it's not like out of the world ridiculous.
Like Arsenal plays with like average SSL players sometimes. At least at the beginning of seasons, or sometimes I've seen them play with those like levels of players. And like you're like, okay, he can. Like he played against like Virus. Like I know nobody who's listening to this podcast like knows who that is, but
Yeah, average SSL
like
player
Virus
for
is like,
sure.
yeah, Virus is like an average SSL player, and like he beat Arsenal. Like, I don't know.
I've also had buddies of mine who like were GC3 or just broke into SSL, who would like beat the pros once, and it's like that just won't happen if you're that big of a skill gap away. Like it just won't.
That's true.
So
I mean, even I have screenshots of beating this one pro in serial
Same.
calls.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
yes,
never
the
even met
teams are
SSL
GC3
before.
and we beat them. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's always ranges, right, between like just the SSL and pro. That's just how it is. Like,
I don't think the
and it just
pros are like
depends on which band you measure. You're talking entry SSL versus the dude who hit 2600. Okay, like as opposed to just another pro that came
yeah,
16th or
I
like
think
was one game off making a regional, right?
the other thing that Blink kind of brought up like a couple of minutes ago too, that was like ties into this debate and thing to think about, is like when someone who's like just starting this game. I know this was kind of also talked about in the RLSS a little bit, but like some people think like if you started the game today, you would never go pro because there's no skill cap and you'll just never be able to reach the levels the current pros are at. So it's just not worth even trying to go pro. And I hate this take because I think it's really just like the bubble players or like some media people in the Rock League trying to like gatekeep people into not trying. Because like the idea that like you can't just like pick up the game and be better at it and like get better at it than the pros currently are is like ridiculous. It's like pros can't improve as fast as someone who just started the game. And if that was true, literally no one would ever go pro in sports because they just played for too long, and you can't catch the like ever like there's not an infinite skill cap to any like game. It's not possible. So I think it's like this idea that like
I think given enough time, eventually someone will catch up.
yeah, like it would take like
Because
yeah, it
this
would take 2
example
years.
is Daniel.
But
Like I played the game 2 to 3 years before Daniel even started playing the game. Look where he is now, right? 3 years ago, people would have been like, "Oh," people would still have the same take. They're like, "Oh, the skill ceiling is just so high, someone wouldn't be able to catch up." And then see current generation of pros. They all started the game like 3, 4 years ago.
yeah, I think it would take like, someone started, it'll take them like 2 years of playing to reach to the pro level. But
Yeah.
if you're like 13, 14, like go for it. Why not? There's no reason
Yeah.
not to.
You have like time to burn.
Yeah.
You have the tutorials for literally
No
everything in the
friends.
game.
Yeah,
Like-
like it might take 2 years to get the level, but like for sure you could get there and be better than any of them if you're like truly that good at the game. I don't think anyone should like take what they're saying like, oh, you'll never be able to catch the pros. It's just not.
And
Not
here's
how
the
it
best part,
works.
Gib. You don't have to memorize champion abilities
Yeah.
or strats or grenade throws.
And you can hyper train it too, which people don't realize. Like Rocket League's one of the yes, it's the hardest mechanically, but it's also been blessed with like the best training modules for like free play training, like custom maps, scenarios where you can just, you can do like 500 flip resets in like 2 hours, right? Versus like other games have shit training modules. So like you just can't practice anything at all because it doesn't exist. So like to try and attain some skills in other esports is like so much harder than Rocket League because they like the training's just bad. But
Yeah. Well, like you look back at the early day pros and like yes, they have like a lot of hours, but the amount of things they're able to do, like the meta is just constantly evolving, right? And like if you just start at a different time, it doesn't mean like you have to relearn the whole meta and like
Yeah.
go along that path the other pros did. You're gonna pick up where the new meta is, and you're gonna learn the best things to do right away, like best things to train, and like I think the Rocket League game right now, it's still not as like defined or as mentally heavy as other games, or as like it's not as complex, I should say, as other games. And I still feel like there's like so many. It definitely is in the future going to be just up to the players themselves being like geniuses, like being
Yeah.
able to have like this crazy vision of the field and seeing what their player like their teammates are and like thinking like 5 steps ahead of how to do like certain play. And like I think that's possible, and it's going to be crazy when some players are able to do that. And we're still seeing the mechanics and like
yeah.
improve like players like Zen and like maybe even Nupo, who knows, but mostly like Zen obviously being the best example,
Yeah.
like doing crazy shots like very consistently. So it doesn't matter anymore about, or it will never matter like about the current pros just always going to be being better than any other pros coming in.
Yeah.
Ever.
I think that ties us into the last thing we're going to talk about too. That was on Twitter perfectly. Is the other debate was this? I don't know if you guys don't follow him. He's from the league scene, but his name's Elo Santa. He's a league streamer from Europe. He's really funny, and he made a tier list of how hard it is to go pro in esports. And he,
So
like,
he's a
ranked
known
them.
person, eh?
Oh, he's a big media personality in the league, like big
Okay.
streamer in the League of Legends community. Well, not big, but like he's bigger than any Rocket League streamer would be ever. But smaller in the League of Legends grand scheme of things. Like he's not as big as Tyler One, if you guys know that guy and stuff. But
Oh, of course.
yeah.
T1.
But he's still like he gets like I think like 6,000 views sometimes, like averaging on Twitch and stuff, or like depending on like how well he's doing. But yeah, he made a tier list, and basically it was like of all the esports, and it's like how hard is it to go pro, and the tier list was ranked from like A, B, C, D, and like S tier as well. And he had like Rocket League pretty low on the list, and the community was not pleased with this. And then
I can pull up the list right now.
Yeah, it sparked up just the whole debate
Okay,
of like, so how hard is Rocket League to go pro compared to other esports, which is I think just like a fun topic to discuss and talk about. Because
So for him, he had chess and StarCraft at S, Dota 2 and League of Legends at A, B, CS:GO, and C was Apex Legends, Valorant, Rocket League, and I don't even know what that game is.
It was Trackmania, wasn't it?
That's Trackmania. Okay. And D was Battlegrounds, Overwatch,
yeah.
COD, Pokemon, TFT. Okay. And then basically the RO community was saying Rocket League at C, it should be like A and S. It should be as hard as it is to go pro in Dota, League of Legends, StarCraft, and chess.
No. Most of them think it's S. I think it's the hardest esport to go pro in. Was like the most general take of Rocket League people within the Rocket League scene. Some people didn't.
Rocket
have
League
that
is
take.
S tier,
like
921 likes.
AJ's a smart guy. He didn't have that take. AJ was the take I agreed with the most. Where I agree with Rocket League is a top 2, or you could argue the hardest game from a mechanical point to go pro in. I think that's not really debatable. The only debatable one with Rocket League for mechanics is like a fighting game, because that also like it requires very similar, like very high mechanics, and then there's also like a more in-depth strategy component to fighting games compared to Rocket League as well. But in terms of like mental, like or the macro standpoint of Rocket League, I mean it's like F tier compared to other esports. And in terms of player base, Rocket League's also F tier compared to a lot of the other esports. There's just less people trying to go pro, so there's like a higher chance you'll go pro because you're just not competing against as many people. That's just like basic stats for the most part. And it's in hindsight, it's smarter to try to go pro in Rocket League because you're competing against less people, so you have a higher chance if you are good at the game to go pro than in like another esport. It's not even like the other esports have like I did the math on a tweet. Like the ratios don't work out. It's not like League of Legends has like 1,000 pro player spots to Rocket League's 100. All the esports are pretty similar, I'd say, in like the amount of pro spots you have. So you literally are just competing against more people for like the same amount of pro spots. So it's just like statistically.
Yeah, it's like a couple of stats, right? Just based on player base, statistically alone, it will, based on the number of players actively playing, it makes it harder to go pro and weak. Number two is the age of the game, right? It's like League of Legends and CS:GO. They've been out far longer than Rocket League. Just that by itself makes it harder to go pro in, right?
Yeah, people are talking in
That
Rocket
is
League that
valid
you'll
points.
never catch the pros. How about trying to catch the pros in League of Legends where it's been out for like
Yeah.
10 years or 15
Yeah.
years?
It's like for
Well,
these games, the average player's been playing for like years. Okay, and then that's just the average player. Well, you're talking about like a random plat in League of Legends. They've been playing for like 5 years. That's not the same with Rocket League. Rocket League applied to someone who's just been playing for like a year or two.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Just in terms of like age of the game, that already has another impact. And then we're not even getting to the actual part of the game itself, where Rocket League is one of the most brain dead games out there. There is like no strategy.
Not no
Yeah,
strategy.
there's
It's
not a
just
lot of
You can
compared
say
to
there's
education.
rotation, but that's like you're not memorizing anything.
it's
You're
just
not memorizing
compared to knowing
abilities.
like 160 champions, what every
Yeah,
ability
exactly.
they do, and like the macro gameplay of knowing all the timings and like memorizing that in your head isn't much to Rocket League, where it's just like I go here, and then
Yeah.
he goes
Like,
there.
I'm
And
sorry,
that's
but
it.
Rocket League is pretty simple. That's why I'm good at it compared to these games, right? It's brain dead. You either go or you don't go. You're either rotating or you're not. You
The
don't need to
biggest
worry about all these abilities.
the biggest thing is there's not much like punishment in Rocket League if you for like doing something wrong. Sometimes it works out. You could mess
Yeah.
up mechanically and you score because of it. Where like in other games, if you mess up mechanically, you just lose the entire game, or like
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
of the
I think
way it works.
I think right now, because Rocket League is still such a young game, and the fact like the two biggest facts is it's just like it's such a young game, hasn't had a lot of like innovation to the way it's been played and like the complexity of the pro play. And then the second part is it's just like there's not a lot of people playing it. Like that's gonna be the biggest factor honestly for any type of sport, and how hard it is to go pro. It's just
Yeah,
based off the competition, and
yeah.
like
I think
there's
that's
not
the
that much
biggest. Yeah,
competition.
I agree. I think
Other
that's the
things like
biggest
aren't don't
factor.
matter as much to be honest, because like sure if it's like you know if it's not like as hard mentally, it still is more of a factor of like the population that's playing it, because like you know everything's normally distributed, so there's still gonna be like the same like proportion of
Yeah, yeah.
players, but if there's like a larger population like overall, then obviously it's gonna be harder.
To me, there's I think there's two major factors if you want to go pro in a game, and I think people don't realize like the way it should be looked at is like you're just starting the game and you want to go pro in a game. Which one should you choose to be the easiest? It's not like you're SSL, which game's the easiest to go pro, and if you start at the highest rank, no, it's like the average player, like which game would be the easiest to go pro, and I think is the way you have to look at this debate. I think the two
Yeah.
factors is, as you said, player base. So if Rocket League had like a similar player base to League of Legends, maybe there's like a more of debate on which one's hard to go pro in. But I think the first one's player base, and then the second factor you have to consider is how many hours does it take to go from silver to the highest rank in that game, or like silver to like get to a point where you compete with the pros. Because at the end of the day, those are the
Right.
two like biggest factors that are going to affect you to go pro in, and that's just kind of what it is at the end of the day. It doesn't matter like if a game's harder macro wise or harder mechanical wise. It's how quickly can you like catch up to the pros to go pro. Like on average, if you're like gifted at the game or actually good at the game. And
Yeah.
I don't think Rocket League even wins in the hours perspective, because like I hear so many stories of people like reaching SSL after like 1,000 hours or like 2,000 hours of like gameplay,
I
and
could
like
see it.
I know people in League who have spent like 4,000 hours and they're hard stuck plat, or they're like and they tried to actively like improve and like really grind for like higher ranks and like watch all the videos and put the time in, and they're just like
So
I
you're
don't
saying
know.
like it's easier for players in other games to hit their skill ceiling, whereas in Rocket League
I'm just
it's
saying I
harder to
think
hit your skill ceiling?
if you're skilled, it's easier to get to the highest rank of Rocket League than other games, just from an hour's time of how long it would take you to get to that rank from like hours put in. So if you took like a skilled gamer and they would go pro in any game they play in, it would take like maybe 3,000 hours to go pro in Rocket League compared to like 4,500 hours in League of Legends, or like something like that.
4,500.
I'm just
Yeah.
making those numbers up, but that's like the debate. So it'd be easier to go pro in Rocket League because it takes less time and it's a smaller player base. But
I just think like also so many of the pros that are in Rocket League right now, a lot of them just got there based off like grinding brainlessly the game and not trying to like innovate anything crazy. Like you were seeing now with like Gen G, like they're starting to finally start innovating a little bit. It's always been based off like random team chemistry to like push the meta, or like some players having a lot of hours and doing insane mechanics to like really get some success. Like before, it was like the synergy of like uh Gale Force slash Dig, and they like brought a whole new way of like playing threes in a way, you know?
Yeah.
And everybody played up to their meta. But like they didn't really think it through when they were doing that even. They were just like, oh, we play well together and we dominate. And that's about it. With this Gen G team, you could argue roughly the same. Like it's like team chem and like synergy matters a lot too for them. But I think they're actively trying to think about the game a lot more in depth, especially like apparently Jack on that team and Noli. Like maybe Chronic too, I don't know, but like I assume it's more Noli and Abjack there doing the thinking. And like that team, you just see the way they play and the way they think about the game, and it's just like a lot smarter and like more talent focused or innovative, I guess, in a way too, than like the way the game's and like more complex than just the simple brain dead. We're gonna grind and do scrims, you know, and not think about the way we're playing or do VOD reviews and think, oh, maybe I should challenge here. Like, no, it's not like that in depth thinking. It's just like
No, I agree with you.
when they say that. So
I mean, you can't have no thought and go pro Rock League. It does require like a good amount of like. There's a good
little
amount of
bit.
knowledge about rotations and stuff. For
like
sure.
it's so simple still, right? Like
I think
there's
it's just
you know,
Rock League's always going to be capped unless they change something fundamental about the game. It's just the nature of the game is just it's easier and less complex from a like knowledge standpoint than other esport games, and like you can't really change that. It's just
I guess.
That's just
what
what it is, right?
Yeah.
There's just, I feel like there's always some crazy plays you could do, and certain like you just don't think about, or certain things you could do, like oh, just don't go for the ball here and like let your teammate rotate, or I'm gonna fake like I guess
For
those
sure.
like you don't like so many teams forget about those plays and
For
they
sure,
just
it's
play
just
like simple Rocket League.
I think they forget because the game's just too fast. Because it's like probably it's the first or
maybe.
second fastest esports in terms of pace because it just never stops. So it's really hard to like set up these thinkings and stuff because it's like you have to make the second in like milliseconds. Where like I don't know if you watch CS:GO or League of Legends, but the choices they make is like it's like a 5-minute build up, or you have like 3 minutes to talk to your team like, hey, we're gonna do this. This is and you have this time in game to be like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this at this time, and this is how we're gonna do it. Where you have like more time to kind of like collect yourself and do like the cool knowledge like thinking plays. Where like Rocket League's like if you take that time to think, sometimes you'll just like miss out on it. Because it is truly such like a split-second decision of what to do.
Rocket League, you're trying to play like almost as fast as you can.
Because if you're slow, you'll just lose.
Yeah.
I can say that like from a competing standpoint, like when I compete and stuff, like if you sometimes if you stop to think too much about it, you'd lose because of it.
Hesitation for sure is like just it will kill your team, and like it's obviously the worst thing to do, I think, in Rocket League especially. But I don't know. I'm talking more like just like taking a step back after gameplays and just like trying to integrate it a little bit more into your scrims and trying new things and stuff.
Oh, I agree with that. Like I'm sure I think Gen G is the first team that's trying to do it really well. But outside of Gen G, like the teams in Rocket League could spend much more time actually like thinking about what they could do and seriously implementing it instead of like I think maybe teams talk about it, but I don't think they like seriously try to implement it sometimes.
Yeah,
it looks like they don't actually try to like seriously.
But even still, how could you possibly compare Rocket League to chess? Like,
yeah, but I mean that's tough too. If you're talking like mental complexity, there's no shot. Obviously, it's not possible.
What about blitz chess?
Well, you know what?
1 minute.
When you think about it, when you think about it, at the end of the day, maybe it's even more complex than chess because there's so many different options you have to do in split seconds.
But I think chess is a good example of like how you see when the top players play the bullet chess, which would Rocket League equivalent would be they make mistakes, but when they play the 45-minute marathon games, they just don't make those same mistakes in the bullet chess. So we just need a long form Rocket League with slow motion.
Yeah, that's
slow motion Rocket League.
And then we'll be good, right? We just need the slow motion Rocket League cup, and then we'll see all the brilliant plays.
That'd be crazy.
I mean, it's fun. There's no right answer to this debate. It's just everyone's personal opinion on it, which is why it's a fun topic.
No, we're mostly just thinking about like, what goes into these rankings and if it's fair.
I think Rocket League players, first of all, like they play Rocket League, so they don't use the brain. Second of all, they don't use the brain. Then third of all, they only play Rocket League. They don't play any other game. They probably never even tried chess. They don't even know what that is.
I know you
Yeah.
people don't like to hear it in the Rocket League community, but I'll just say like Rocket League community is like that one weird uncle you had, or like the one far distant cousin in terms of like the esports whole
I think it's the
scene
weird cousin. Yeah,
community.
the
It's the
weird like
weird
little
cousin.
cousin
It's
from
just we have a
Ohio.
nice niche community and super cool, but it's like the weird cousin to the grand of total of like the whole esports scene and their opinions, views, and like media,
Yeah.
mainstream media for esports. It's just the sad reality of our small niche game.
Yeah.
That's
It's
fun.
like every other esport, they have their haters and like
Yeah.
uh people who are just genuinely stupid or make terrible takes. But like the people, like the most influential people actually have like, rational takes, or they can make like decent arguments. Where I feel like some of the streamers or content creators in Rocket League are just like, I don't know if they're even using their brain when they type on Twitter.
They just a lot of people in the Rocket
Community
League
has the
are just
weirdest
like
takes,
Rocket
man.
League's the best at everything. Nothing bad.
No, they're delusional. Oh,
They're
for sure.
just-
There's way too
Except
many delusional
AJ.
people
AJ
in
actually
Rocket
gives
League.
really good takes. Dude, my man
Yeah.
AJ, he's giving
AJ
his take on this one
got-
was Rocket League's the hardest game mechanically, but that's it. And I was like, that is the take. Like
yeah,
that
like that's a
is-
decent take. It's
yeah.
it's like it's harder to do like a foot reset than to do point and click.
and point and click or point and
point and
shoot.
click, they would say.
Yeah.
Like
The
okay,
inputs
I
are way
can
more
understand
complex.
that.
Yeah.
The problem is Rocket League community has a lot of delusional people and they're very vocal and have a lot of influence. That's the
Well,
problem.
they only have influence within the RL scene. They don't have any
Okay.
influence within the esports
Yeah,
scene.
so let me clarify within the scene.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's also just with the it goes back to Rocket League has a younger audience, so I think they're very more impressionable than other esport
Yeah.
audiences. So if you see all the cool creators saying that, they're just gonna take it for word and spread it, versus like actually thinking about it and be like, oh, I don't agree with you, or like, oh, that's kind of like a weird, I respect it, but I don't fully agree with that take made by the analyst. I think that happens more in other esports where it's like, I don't agree with that take, instead of just taking it and spreading it like gospel wildfire around the community scene.
I'm excited for when I hope at least when they implement like older ages in RLCS.
It'll be
'Cause
fun.
we need more of that, man. I'm tired of listening to the like terrible 15-year-old interviews or 16-year-old interviews.
I don't know if we'll
Like,
see
they don't
it
know what
because
they're
everyone
talking about.
retires at 20 or 21.
If we didn't
We'll
have
see.
15-year-olds, like they were retiring like at least a couple of years later.
Yeah, I still don't know why people retire so early in Rocket League. I think it's just
It could
the
be just a
culture,
young
but
esport.
yeah,
Like once it like solidifies more and like I don't know. In EU I feel like it's worse, but in NA it's not as bad. At least right now I feel like.
that's why we gotta hope JNaps as well. You gotta
Yeah.
we gotta start cheering for the old men. We gotta start
Yeah,
believing
take
in
some
them more.
notes from
Dude,
Genji.
Mark Baye, he's why that team made it.
I do not agree with that. That is 100% wrong.
Turbo Pulse, he's making a comeback. Yeah.
Oh man, I think he's retiring, bro.
I think he's retiring too, but yeah, because like I'll just say for one context is like I watched or League of Legends just had like the European final today, and they had one rookie that split guess the age of this rookie on G2. He's a
Is it
rookie.
Munzi?
No,
Munzi?
not CS:GO,
Or-
League of Legends.
Oh, League of Legends.
Munzi was really young. He's like a prodigy. I think he played at like
Oh.
15, 16 for G2. No, this was their
Yeah,
jungler.
if we're talking league,
It's
I
a
don't know,
rookie. It's his
17?
rookie season. Not 17.
Yeah.
Older.
18?
Older.
Really?
Yeah. It's in the 20s. He was 22.
Really?
He was 22
Oh my
rookie year,
God.
and people like are talking about him like he's got this super good potential, like amazing rookie. It's cool to see because they also have 17-year-old rookies in League of Legends. But it's
Yeah.
cool to see like they don't care as much about age. It's like they just believe like as long as you're somewhere in like 17 to like I think 22 is kind of like the upper echelon limit, but like 17 to like 21, 22, it doesn't matter when you break in. As long as you break in, you'd have like really good potential, which is cool to see. But
Yeah, we need more maturity in RL.
Yeah.
And I need the in-studio regionals again. Or something in-studio. I miss the studio.
I
you
do
know?
miss the
Like,
studio. Yeah, the
they
in-studio
were nice.
analyst desk instead of
yeah. I was
the
fast.
online stuff.
Yeah,
Or-
it's just not the same with two casters on a Discord call, and they have
Yeah.
like a background, like
yeah.
It's not the
as
same.
opposed to studio.
Also,
and they
player
actually
interviews
showed
would
like
slap
reviews
harder
in
if they could
those.
ever do like I don't know, like a playing from a studio for the pro players for just regional leagues too. That would slap so hard.
Yeah, they did that for Overwatch 1.
Yeah, they do it in a lot of other esports. Like I think CS:GO most events are like in person, right, with their like circuit and stuff, and then League of Legends is all through like studios and like CODs through studios as well. Like I don't know if R6 is or not, but like a lot of all
Yeah.
the bigger esports are through like studios, and it's really cool. Like their analyst desks, like Blink wants, and bring back the segments of the analyzers and stuff together, and the
That might not
casters.
happen for a while though, because of
Yeah.
recession. But we'll see. Money's tight for everybody.
Yeah. I think that's going to be it for this podcast. But if you stayed this long, thank you for coming out, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully, we have them back to week ones now.
Yeah.
But yeah. Bye.